Oh, how it goes in this stubborn town. No one seems to know how to get around. One said, we say what we are and we do what we teach. Let me preach in my words.
Well, we made it over to Thurber, checking out the cemetery first, and then we'll show you some of the buildings, or what's left of the buildings here in this ghost town. You can hear I-20 in the background, because if you didn't know, that passes right on by Thurber. Whew. Had I known I'd be doing some hiking, I would have worn better shoes. So these old clodhoppers. I have to say, we probably would have skipped this in light of the fact that normally people don't seem to get too crazy about looking at cemeteries in the videos that I post. But I figured, since this is part of Thurber's early history and the people who are buried here lived, worked, and died for the company that started Thurber, I thought, why not come out here and at least recognize some of the individuals who are interred here. Basically a company-owned town, Thurber got its start thanks to coal. Started by William Whipple Johnson and Harvey Johnson, mining operations began here in December of 1886. You can tell by the condition of the old iron fencing that's around it, plus the headstones themselves, that this is a really old cemetery. It appears these are some of the people that are buried here, but they don't know their exact location, and so they've recognized them here with this group headstone, if you will. And if it weren't for the sound of the interstate in the background, this would be a really peaceful place. Now here's one of particular interest, especially because of my own Polish roots. This man migrated from Poland and mined Thurber coal for 30 years. He was also a brick mason, as evidenced by this brick wall he built in 1913, and the fact that he helped with building of Thurber's smokestack in 1908. Look at how neatly laid the bricks are. It's evident he was a really skilled brick mason. Due to its isolation, miners had to be recruited and came from places like Italy, Poland, Britain, and Ireland. Most couldn't speak English, which made it easy to maintain a repressive work environment. Not too long after, though, the company began having labor issues. Due to the inability to meet payroll, the miners went on strike. By the fall of 1888, the company sold out to the founders of Texas and Pacific Coal Company, namely Robert Dickey Hunter and H.K. Thurber of New York. You know, there's a saying, I sold my soul to the company store, and I guess being out here in the cemetery kind of just really drives home that point, for me at least. Maybe because as I'm looking around here at the graves of the people that were buried here and thinking about the lives that they once had, they basically lived and died for the company that they worked for. Thurber was the typical company town. With low wages and a once-a-month check system, the employees were forced between pay periods to use scrip in the commissary stores. And really, that wouldn't be uncommon for the time period that we're talking about, nor the industry, the mining industry. It's just, I guess, in modern times, it seems like such a foreign concept. Because how many people nowadays, start working somewhere and end up working there their entire lives at one place or one job? It's really unheard of these days. And I think that pretty much ended with, I want to say, probably my grandparents' generation. I mean, I think there's some of that yet with the generation, like my parents' generation, and maybe some of the people from my generation, but I would say it's probably very few and far between that people from my generation have worked and stayed at the same spot, just because, at least up where I live, where manufacturing was so big, a lot of people in my generation ended up losing their jobs, probably multiple times too. So, and I think it also started a little bit maybe with our generation, that you maybe started looking for betterment jobs where, you found a job where you got paid more at a different facility. So the whole concept of starting and staying at one place was pretty much gone by the wayside. Anyways, just my 2 cents. Take it with a grain of salt. Just meant for discussion, to get you thinking, and basically to highlight the differences between then and now. And I give you Thurber. But before I go any further, I need to give a few shout outs to our newest patrons and some people for tipping our trip jar. Scott and Jennifer, thanks for joining us here on Patreon as fellow sightseers. And then special thanks to Michael from Indiana and Sue and Joanne from Illinois for tipping our trip jar. Thanks to all of you, we've been able to get out and share with you some of America's forgotten history. Now back to Thurber. As you can see, Marty's up there reading on the smokestack. It's probably one of the most iconic and well-known pieces of architecture from this old ghost town, besides maybe the building that the smokestack restaurant is in. And what really makes Thurber so unique in all of Texas is that underneath the site of a former ghost town lies Texas's only known deposit of bituminous coal. According to the sign, there's 127 million tons of coal still owned by Texas Pacific, which may be mined sometime in the future. And it occurs from the surface all the way down 450 feet. Wow, that is some view looking up.
Oddly enough, these are 4 porcelain signs on metal, and it's written in red, which I think they outlawed red for some reason.
Really? You're not just pulling my leg on that?
No, apparently the red was toxic or something, and they outlawed using certain red colors in porcelain signs.
I just learned something new today, sightseers. And actually, if we think about it, that's 2 things I learned today from Marty. The first one was about bricklaying, and now I learned about the toxic color of red in porcelain signs. Here's the back view for all you nosy Nellies out there.
You can actually read Thurber brick. Well, you can read Thur and then Bri on there with the triangle.
And something that Marty doesn't know about these bricks, but what I found when digging into Thurber history, is that one of the individuals that was involved in starting the coal mine, Colonel Hunter, was also involved in starting the brickmaking company. And while on paper they had the 2 companies separated, in reality, the clay that made these bricks came from when they were digging the coal. In 1897, a second industry came to town, a brick-making plant. These bricks were made from clay dug up during the mining process. And although the brick-making industry eventually went by the wayside when coal mining ended here, bricks made from Thurber's plant can still be seen today in places like Mingus and the Fort Worth stockyards. What are you looking at, Marty?
One old fire hydrant. That's really old. I wonder if this is actually was originally here, or if this put this here because of the old fire station behind us.
It's obvious from looking at the fire station that they have made attempts to restore the building. So I guess it's possible that they could have stuck that old fire hydrant there, but based on the condition, I'm thinking it might actually be original. Here we can see what's left of Thurber's water treatment plant. With the coal boom, money flooded into town, bringing with it such modern conveniences as electricity and indoor plumbing. Looking at this barbed wire, Marty, do you think it's original, like to the town?
Actually, yes it is. If you look at the barbs on it, the barbs are made out of flat metal instead of round wire. So it's flat on the top.
Yep. The reason I had asked is that I had read that they had encircled the entire town in barbed wire. One of the first things the new owners did when they bought the coal mining company was fence off a portion of the land and built their own town inside it. This newly formed town of Thurber was heavily regulated, encircled in barbed wire, and armed with guards to keep peddlers and union organizers out. So I was wondering if the barbed wire here was actually some of the barbed wire that they used to encircle the town. Due to the oppressive work environment and low wages, labor disputes were common occurrences in Thurber's early history. As a result, United Mine Workers focused their efforts on unionizing Thurber's miners. In 1903, 1,600 members were inducted into the Thurber local UMWA. Interestingly enough, Thurber gained recognition for being the only 100% closed shop city in the entire United States. Thurber remained a Union stronghold until the 1920s, when locomotives switched over to burning oil. With the decline in use of coal came a wage cut, leading to more labor unrest and strikes. And from what I understand, by the 1930s, Thurber was a ghost town.
This probably was an old gas station here. Probably was water and air right here. And possible these round parts could have been old visible gas pumps.
Across the interstate, you can find additional remnants of Thurber's past. A historical marker remembering New York Hill. An old church that used to sit at the bottom of Graveyard Hill and somehow found its way into Mingus at one point. And an original miner's house that was bought for only $50 when the town was torn down. What the miners would have lived in? According to the placard, this is one of the original Thurber miner houses. It just wasn't in this location originally. It was moved here. We discovered two towns 2 miles apart. One survived, the other died. And while those who started Thurber could not have predicted its fate, let us remember the words of Annie Dillard, who once said, "Silence is not our heritage, but our destiny. We live where we want to live." And that, sightseers, is all that's left to this Texas ghost town. Until next time, this is Sightseeing Sally.